severe and we cannot treat it straight away. Yes, it's quite dangerous. It's one of the first killers in the world. And it's the same for malaria also.
Tents and sheets provide some shelter from the sweltering sun for those too ill to move. Adults lie listless, waiting to see the doctors. The vast majority of them also have severe diarrhea. Conditions out here are abysmal, although better than when the refugees first streamed in. Clean water is in short supply, despite the tanker loads being brought in, hardly enough for drinking, bathing, and washing.
Down there are some of the latrines that have been set up by UNICEF, but despite aid agencies' best efforts, these are hardly sanitary conditions. And this is just one of the factors that is contributing to growing concerns about the spread of various diseases.
The population density at this UN camp is said to be equivalent to 10 times that of Mumbai, one of the world's most crowded cities. Such cramped conditions create the potential for even greater suffering.
If we get any one of those contagious or disease outbreak, that will be a big issue because we are maybe not really ready to respond for the meantime. Like cholera, like measles.
Immunizations are underway for polio and measles. But of even greater concern are the children who didn't make it to UN bases, don't have access to treatment, and have reportedly fled into the bush without access to water, food, and medicine, potentially leading to more innocent lives lost, to a war few can understand.
And Fanula, there is a town that is located just to the south of Bor, some 50 kilometers away from it, and that is where the UN, for example, believes that tens of thousands of people have fled, and they have absolutely no support in that area, no access to anything.
Michael Schumacher remains in a medically induced coma in a French hospital after his weekend skiing accident. He suffered severe head trauma. CNN's Jim Bolden tells us more about his latest condition, which doctors say is stable but still critical.
That unless there is something significantly changed in his condition, they're not going to be briefing the press on how Michael Schumacher is doing. So it was up to his manager, Sabine Kemp, to come out earlier today and just to give us an update how it's been explained to her how Michael did overnight. Take a listen.
Michael's condition has been supervised all night long very carefully, and his condition remained stable last afternoon, last night, and also this morning. This is a good news for the moment, and I repeat for the moment, because overall the situation is still critical. He remains in an artificial coma.
Now, that was several hours ago, Fanula. We were not expecting to get any other updates today. So the doctors continued to say, and they said yesterday in Sabine, it is really hour by hour. And don't forget, when Michael Schumacher had his second operation on Monday night, doctors say they did find some other parts of his brain damaged from the fall, not just the part that they were able to remove, or a lesion, bruise they were able to remove Monday night. So no more updates today that we are aware of. But I think some of his fans could latch on to that word stable.
And before we end this edition of the news, a recap of our top stories. President Jammeh has deplored corruption and moral impropriety, but not without calling for discipline in our schools, homes and institutions. Gambians last night flocked to the tourism development area and other sites to welcome the new year, the year 2014, in grand style, and of course watch impressive fireworks displays. South Sudan President Salva Kiir has declared a state of emergency in 2 states and sent a team of negotiators to Addis Ababa for peace talks. And the Formula One legend, Michael Schumacher, is still in a critical but stable condition. This after a skiing accident left him with severe head trauma. That was all in this edition of the news. Thanks for your time, and inshallah we'll see you again at 2200 hours for more news. Until then, I am Fatou Janimbai, and a happy and prosperous Happy New Year.
Excellency. Your Excellency, we will begin this interview on the domestic front. Certainly we will be touching on foreign policy as well. The budget has just been presented to the National Assembly. It was an optimistic budget, so to speak. We are expecting growth to revert back to 6%. Generally speaking, the budget outline also spoke of achievements in many areas over the preceding year. That's optimistic, certainly, so to speak. But from a more general perspective, a review of the year, what kind of year has it been?
We had ups and downs, which is natural, which is expected, because as Muslims and Christians that believe in the one God, the Almighty Allah would always test your faith, at the same time urge you to be resilient, because that is what we are taught in the Quran, that we should be resilient, and the Almighty Allah would test us always. But it has been a year of significant achievements, in the sense that there is one commodity that money can buy, that money cannot buy, and that is peace and stability and tranquility in this country. Yes, I would have loved that 2013 would have been a year of more rapid development, but because of the slowdown in world economy and financing, we were able to make the best out of what we have. And overall, it has been a very successful year in terms of agricultural output. This year has been the most successful year throughout the 19 years that I have been a head of state. This is thanks to the Almighty Allah in the first place, and the people of this country heeding my call. I do not think that Gambians will require food aid this year as compared to last year. And I believe also that Gambians have learned a lesson, a very important lesson, because this year's farming activity is unprecedented in the sense that even ministers, not only did they have a cabinet farm, but they also had their own big farms that they have cultivated, and they had a good harvest. So what does that mean? It meant that if we all work towards providing what we are going to eat, that means providing to feed ourselves and our families, hunger would be a thing of the past in this country. The year in some areas have not been good, in the sense that a review of some practices at the Ministry of Agriculture were abominable. The results were very appalling. Only we realized that most of these project funds, where they are supposed to build infrastructure for accessibility of major rice fields to the women of this country, or the rice cultivators, were just ad hoc projects, projects that where on paper they spend millions of dollars, but in reality they actually didn't spend anything except provide food for the local people to build local bridges, wooden bridges, and they costed them in millions. This practice is unacceptable, and as from now, this government will pay particular attention, especially this office. I personally will pay more attention. If I can say, I'll put 3 departments under the microscope, or 3 ministries, and that is 1, agriculture.